Laʻi ʻŌpua, as well as our department, and then also our developers and management company. We want to come together and just say thank you again. And Father, we just pray today. We ask for your wisdom to be poured upon us as families that represent generations. We also pray for um, just for a peace that surpasses all understanding. We know that you, Keakua, are our hope. We look to you for love, for peace, for hope, and all of the above. And so we thank you for being that to us. And once again, as we partake of this kuka kuka, we give you all the glory and all the praise. And we pray all of this in your son's name, Yesu Christo. And together we say, Amen. Aloha, aloha, mahalo, you guys, for joining us. I know I was talking story with some of you, and they was like, what we got busted for? It wasn't. We wanted to share information and be able to just get plenty, plenty questions. So we want to come together as a group and say, okay, these are some of the things that we wanted to share with you guys. But before that, I wanted to kind of introduce who's here today. And not that I don't know them, I just don't want to miss anybody. So Chair Watson, Deputy, Deputy Lambert, Executive Assistant Hoke, and then we also have Commissioners Kalei Kini and Commissioner Freitas. And then also our staff from DHHL. Then we also have Doug Bigley, Grant Bigley, Amy Sanchez, and staff from combination of Ikai Kohana and then 3150. So with that, we just wanted to say mahalo. I'm going to turn to the agenda, and this is what we're going to be going over today. We also have some others that are joining us virtually because they never like come. No, I'm just kidding. They wanted to peek from their room and sing. But they'll be able to ask questions as well. And so we'll have some time later afterwards for Q&A. Mahalo, Kapulani, if you guys if you haven't gotten those information. Okay, so introductions. Now I'm going to pass it on to Chair Watson. He's going to come and share a bunch of things.
Hello, Kako. Yeah, I wanted to be here tonight in order to not only we have a workshop tomorrow for the individuals that are going to participate in the new construction we're doing that will be in the same program as you folks regarding the financing, the low-income housing tax credits with the option to purchase. But I also wanted to share with you, and I view this as good news in the sense that when I came to this job, it was very obvious that this particular program, there were some problems with it. So we immediately identified one of the major problems and figured out a solution. So I brought in a couple of attorneys, and we examined the law, both the trust laws, the One Act, as well as how we could fix it. So the problem was that under this program, if you were a participant, you were considered a renter for 15 years. And so you would not be able to become a homesteader till the end of the 50 years. And then the worst part about it is if you should pass away within that 15 years, you would get nothing. Your heirs would get nothing. So basically, all those payments that you made, as well as all those years you waited to get a homestead, would go down the drain. So what we did when I took on this job, we figured out how to fix that. That's what I want to share with you tonight. What we did is we went to the legislature, we put together a law, which changes the approach where, and basically I'll keep it a little, simple because it is kind of a complicated when you deal with all the tax credits and stuff. But what we did was we separated the, financing for the vertical construction house from the land. And the land, we treat that as homestead, which we are now, the change in law, are able to give you a 99-year lease for that homestead, which now allows you with that homestead pala to be able to transfer that homestead to your heirs. And then more importantly, your heirs, because you are now a homestead lessee, can be 25% Hawaiian, rather than trying to transfer it to you as an applicant to an heir, who would have to be 50%. So not only, and we're doing that with all the leases. You know, we're giving out these project leases to accomplish that same thing that we're now applying to you folks. I think that's very, very important that folks understand this major change in the program, which now makes it even a better program because you are protected. But more importantly, you have a homestead fee rather than a financing package for your um, your home. But I also have to stress that under this LIHTC, or Low Income Housing Tax Credit Program, you're still obligated to follow all the rules. No, it's a 15-year period. You still do the 15-year period, full compliance. You still got to do the annual certification as well as inspection. And these are as well as you have to. We'll go into details. Doug will go into details. I'm just giving you a kind of a general understanding and summary of the approach that we have now changed in order to address the problem with the old program. And this approach we're also going to use with the new awards that we're going to be making shortly for the 40 families and which houses should be completed in August, as well as probably September or October. So those families will benefit also. So the main thing though is, again, there's certain restrictions. You don't want to jeopardize that, because by participating in this program, not only do you not have to pre-qualify for a large mortgage or loan, because you don't have a large mortgage loan. And then a major part of that cost to put up your house is covered by the sale of these tax credits, which generates money, free money basically, that we use to build a house. And that equity that's generated is passed on to you. So that in itself will net out a lower cost, a lower purchase price for you. So these deductions, as well as the ability to not have to qualify for this large mortgage, it's a real plus for individuals that just don't have the revenue, the funds, the income to afford a $400,000 mortgage. It's just based on your income. You have to be below a certain income, there's limits. As long as you fall below that, you're good. And the other thing, and this I think is also important, is that even though when you initially qualified that lower income, say the following year you make more money, you don't get disqualified. You are able to stay in that house for the entire 15 years, even if your income goes way up, because you initially qualified under the program and you continue to qualify under the program. So anyway, that's kind of a general summary of what the program is about. It is something that we are using because historically we bypassed people on the wait list, and individuals like you in the past were bypassed, who live in frustration, who maybe pass away, where your heirs don't get anything. So we've changed that. So we've applied not only this approach, but we do the turnkey. We're now getting active with Habitat for Humanity. We're also doing the owner builder. But it's an approach where in all our projects moving forward, we have made a commitment that we don't want to bypass anybody on our wait list. But we also want to put them in a position where they can pass on their legacy, their major asset. The home is a foundation of the wellness of the community, not only for that present group, but future generations. I think it's important that not only that you understand what is happening, but I think hopefully you can appreciate what the department is doing and trying to be a little bit more innovative and using the advantages of understanding. And I got to thank this guy right here. You guys might not think this guy is, had some issues with him, but I got to say, this guy is a smart, howly guy that came up with ideas, approached me way back. And, we talked, and the first project we did together was in Nanakuli, where we did a 48-unit rental using tax credits and all kind of stuff. And, we got it up. It was a $14.5 million project. I didn't know how to do this kind of financing with HHFTC. This guy knows, he's the expert. And he's the guy that came up with this idea of a LIHTC with option to purchase. So, it's guys like this that are very familiar with the process and know the advantage, because he does it not only over here, but on the mainland in several states. And similarly, well, I wouldn't say that. Actually, this LIHTC with option to purchase, more a product of DHHL and us working together with them, along with some other developers like Greg Watasi. But because of this guy, you guys are in a house that you guys can appreciate and enjoy the benefit. But on the back end, we'll be able to, actually, we will in the coming months make that conversion where we'll start to issue you guys leases so that you are protected and no longer subject to that problem. Okay, thank you.
Okay. I think what we're going to try to a lot here. Most of it I don't understand, but what I was going to say is there's a couple of I've been in contact with many of you. I think there's a lot of people out here that have myself. So I hear from you quite a bit, and I think the two biggest issues, the one that Kali just answered, and the other one is this. Well, let's just go through the slides. But I'm going to get to how the rent to option, the option to purchase actually works, because I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about how it works in the end. So why don't we just go? If you need to go on Zoom, there it is. Next. This is just propaganda about us, so you can read that later. We just put that in there. You can keep going. Yep. This just says we did a lot of that. So that building right there on the left bottom, that's the one that burned down in Lahaina. So, and it will be back up in August. We're going to be completing, that building will be completed again. Next slide. Village 4, which you know about. Keep going. We'll just go through this pretty quickly. There you guys are. It's 116 units, that whole village now. Village 4. Go forward. I don't know what, that's the old site, but you can keep going down to the exteriors, floor plans. We can do that. That's for tomorrow. Keep going. That's the application process. Okay, so this is an important one slide for you guys. So income limits, right? We calculate your income every year, and I know that's anxiety driven because every year rents are rising, right? And a lot of people are asking me how that gets done. The way it gets done is every unit that the rents are always the same, but the income can go up or down if you have more in your family. And I think you all know this, but it's it's 1 per bedroom or 2 per bedroom plus 1. That's the maximum in every unit. But no matter what the rents, again, there's only 1 rent. So when the family size is larger, they're assuming that you're using that to raise your children and educate your children and do other things. So the rent doesn't go up for that. Next slide. This is what I wanted to kind of get into here too, is we've had a lot of discussion regarding utilities. That's a big issue, right? Utilities. Well, the fact of the matter is that when HUD calculates rents, now HUD is the one who drives the rents. They determine what the rents are going to be. And then if you're paying your utilities, the utility allowance, we have to reduce your rents by the utility allowance. Does everybody understand that? I just want to make sure there's some confusion there that and one good check on your utilities are, if you're adding up your utility bills and you're going over that utility allowance, we should have that discussion. Sorry, am I, okay, because I keep spinning at this thing, it's kind of irritating. Oh, but so but everybody kind of understands that because I've answered a few questions and I just want to make sure if you have that issue, but this is a good check of your utility bills, right? So if you think your utilities are over, because we don't want it to be something unusual like a leak or something that we can actually fix. So we just want that could be a benchmark for everybody, okay? So you are paying your utilities, but we're reducing the rents. Okay, next slide. This is more on the utility balances. Next. That's the village RWOPs. Okay, now we get into this piece. I've had a lot of questions on what happens at the end of the 15-year period, right? And how does the purchase price get set? You know, because I've heard a lot of people saying, oh my gosh, is it a market rate price? What is it? Well, essentially it's the same math for the affordability. So by way of example, the simple answer is the way the purchase price works is they calculate the amount of the mortgage that you can afford plus a 5% down payment. You got that? So what happens is, and I want to be clear about this, there's another nuance here that is lost on a lot of people, is that and it pivots back a little bit to what Callie was saying earlier, is that the income that they use to calculate the mortgage is the income of the unit, not your income. Okay? So if you qualified for a 60% unit, your income will be calculated as if you were earning 60% of area median income. That means if you're earning more than that 60%, you will not be penalized for earning more. And it's one of the biggest benefits, I think, of this program. So if you come out and you're at 80 or you're at 100, that's fine. The sales price of that unit is based on 60%. So they won't go back so you're not going in underwriting for that. Does that make sense to everybody? It's an important nuance here, okay? So the one caveat here is that the minimum sales price is enough to pay off all of the debt on the property because we carry debt. Does everybody understand that? Okay. But our goal is to make sure that you're not paying more than you can afford. You with me? That's where this group has to get together, I think, collectively and say what kind of relief is available to us, because we don't want people to be stretched at the end. But we also looked at this when we underwrote the project initially. So everybody says, well, where does my rent go that I do pay? Well, insurance, we have our own staffing, right? But it also goes to retire the first mortgage, so that at the end of the compliance period, that first mortgage doesn't exist. So we've paid that down, which means by definition, the purchase price of your home has gone down. We all understand that so far? Haven't lost anybody on that, okay? So I'm gonna give you an example of that in this diagram. So let's go, so this is our minimum sales price on this, so we have, this is what you're contributing to pay off the rental housing revolving fund loan, to pay off the DHHL loan. You see where I'm at? So that would be the purchase price of your home at the various income levels. You with me there? We got all that? Okay, next slide. So you can, I'll let you read some of this stuff at night when you need to go to bed. But I'm going to explain what this. So then what we do is we calculate an affordability. This is how you calculate the affordability piece. And this is assuming what your income will be in year 15 at an assumed trend. What your income will actually be will probably be different, but this is a way of projecting so people can begin to plan. You got that part, right? So we're just taking and we're saying, and one of the big factors is what happens to interest rates, right? Because interest rates are a big component of that. But what this program does that people don't understand is if interest rates rise, what happens to your purchase price? What happens? When interest rates rise, your purchase price goes down, right? Think about it. Ready? Right? Interest rates. So there's in the system, there's a way of correcting for the fact that if interest rates are rising, mortgage costs go up, you can borrow less, it goes down. Okay? Now the opposite's true. It's if you can borrow more, they expect you to, do what you can pay. Now, what they do is they in year 15, they also take 28% of your income. They're assuming you're going to dedicate 28% of your income to the mortgage. So it drops from what you do even when you rent by about 2%. So that's a little, everything counts, right? So I just want to remind everybody that that's over. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So where are we? So in this analysis of, now this is Village 3. I will tell you, I looked quickly at 1 and 2. You do not have this issue, but I thought it'd be better to demonstrate this issue to you. Is at the end of the day, we look at the ability to pay versus the affordable ability to purchase, and we determine what the difference is. In this case, we are the minimum sales price is 4,000, almost 5,000 higher than what you could be able to afford on that first one at 30%. We want to work on that, right? So we're going to monitor and kind of look at the targets because we want to make sure that when we get to the end of the day, that we're not, again, overpaying on what you can afford. So if you, and I indicated in the bottom here, there's a couple of things that DHHL does, and I'm going to highlight this because I think it's important. DHHL comes in. So Callie did mention regarding how tax credits work. You don't need to pay the equity back. So the equity in year 15 goes away, right? But something else goes away because by the time I get to build the home, all that infrastructure that you guys are driving on, and your curbs and gutters and all of that stuff, the agency has already paid for that. And it goes away, right? It doesn't go back into the calculation. So not only do they provide, financing, but they're also providing, and you're right, so you get the land for zero, you get the infrastructure for zero, right? You're not paying for that because we want to get all those costs out of there that we can. So it keeps that home price right. I suspect, and this is a little old slide because those guys didn't come back to me, so it's a little old, but it's somewhere between, if you're a 2-bedroom house and 3 bedrooms, the cost of that home is probably $1 million to $1.2 million. $1 million to $1.2 million on cost. And in today's value, it's in excess of $1 million. So what Callie was saying to you earlier is you have equity the day you purchase that home. Your home is not marked up for cost. It's not marked up to market. It's based on the ability, your affordability quotient and what you can pay. Okay? So that's hopefully will dispel any mysteries you might have thought about how that kind of works. And it's just a regulatory function of how we do that, okay? I will suspect that, I'll say this here, that some people in the lower particular areas will need additional help. You know, when they approach a bank and stuff like that, but that's the ones we're gonna, you know, be really helpful. You know what I'm saying? And I don't want to put this side, I mean, I could do a lot of things in my life, but I'm here because I like this. Okay, so the important thing that you guys do that other people don't, and Callie is right. I think Hawaii did the first program ever in the country, not just in Hawaii. This was a country thing. Callie started with it. I came along later. I had done some in California, but I think they were the first ones. This is really important. We want everybody here in a home when we're done, because we didn't work this hard for you guys to go in it. So if there's, you know, if I haven't answered something tonight, I'm around. Like I said, there's several of you that have a number, so you can call me, feel free. Okay, so let's go up to the next thing. Okay, we're down to questions. These were the big ones. And I know people are I know I've answered some questions that are, you know, specific to the property, but why Callie's here, is there any questions, any big questions that haven't been answered tonight that is important? Anybody?
Thank you, Doug. Yeah, I also want to add that, you know, this is something unique and designed to, like I said initially, to avoid bypassing people on the wait list. And I think we've accomplished that. We're doing it on the Big Island. Our first project was in Kapolei, the whole Lima Lima project. We were at 72 units, you know, 3-4 bedrooms. We used a bunch of different funding sources to make the numbers work, including tax credits. And so as a result of that, and at the end of the 15 years, in that one, it was, at that point, we issued the leases, which, as I mentioned, we changed that. We're going to issue the leases up right now. And so, but at the end of that day, at the end of the 15-year period, when we did the conversions, I think there was only one family that didn't, and I forget what the reason was, but we did get somebody to replace that one, but all the rest did. And I believe the debt, the remaining debt on that one was something like $90,000. So all the equity that was generated from the sale of the tax credits, the fact that the department paid for all the infrastructure, as Doug had said, you know, that's not added on the back end and increased the debt. Now, I think that administration was thinking of doing that and trying to recoup the infrastructure, but we're not going to do that. You know, we're going to remain consistent. You know, even on our turnkey units and stuff, we pay for the infrastructure. The department pays for the infrastructure. And as you, just to give you some of information regarding, we have about 29 projects that we'll be doing across the state. Act 279, we got $600 million. So we're using it like this in developing projects as well as housing that can address the people on our wait list. So it's you know, it's an approach that I've had some pushback, and but I was also critical, including acknowledging that there was a problem with the program. So as I mentioned, we fixed that. So now we're going to issue the homestead leases up front for the property. But again, I got to reemphasize that 15-year compliance period. You still got to follow that. Still got to do all the things that comes with it. And that's one of the things that in our orientation tomorrow, I'm going to make that very, very clear to those that are considering participating in the program. And which is, if you have trouble with that, you know, complying, restricting who can live in the unit, the certification on an annual basis, inspections and all of that, then you have the option of saying, you know what, I don't want to participate in this program. It's not mandatory. Of course, it's going to be a lot more difficult for you to get another house, but you know, that's your choice. We do have Habitat for Humanity approaches. We do have the owner builder. You figure, hey, you know, working with some of my buddies and stuff, I think I could build it cheaper. Go for it. we will make those options available to individuals that want to go that route. It is going to require certain restrictions or guidance regarding the quality of the home. We don't want you putting up a Quonset hut and, with no doors and, so it has to kind of match the neighborhood, and there's also deadlines on when you have to complete the construction for that approach. But let me again throw the option of questions. Now's the time to ask, so that's why we're here. Yes, ma'am.
So if we're given our leases, does that make us a leasee?
Yes, and you'd be taken off the
Okay,
wait list.
so if that makes us a leasee, then are
Yeah.
we a part of VOLA then?
That's I think, one of the things that because of the financing approach, there's certain the investors that contributed the money and took the risk of not only investing in it, but on the backside, they're getting the tax write-offs or credits, excuse me. And so there are certain IRS guidance and requirements that have to be complied with. So that's why the management company needs to do the annual inspections, need to make sure that the people living in the units qualify in order to protect this investment. Because if there's a violation where you start bringing in, 20 people living in there, the thing is, all busted up, which hopefully you're not going to do that. There's the risk to the investor that they may be penalized by the IRS, and the tax credits are taken away from them or recaptured. So those investors, would not like that. So we're going to use this program, continue to use it for our other project. So we can't jeopardize that by doing anything that undermines the oversight as well as the certification compliance of the program during that 15-year period. Now, that doesn't mean that you folks are treated as a different class. You guys are now going to be homesteaders. So you are entitled to the benefits of the resource center, the programs, what have you. Now, one thing I didn't, and I'm kind of curious, it's, the others are paying this monthly maintenance fee of, I think, $30 a month. So are they going to be part of it? No, serious.
Yeah, let me, if the VOLA becomes a reality, first of all, as you know, we're reluctant VOLAs because one is, I think if you guys take full membership and you become a member of VOLA yourself and you have the voting rights and you're represented, right? That was kind of the rub, a little bit of a rub for us. Plus I have 16, I think I have 116 things we don't want that. So I think Callie could cover it if people wanted to be a member of VOLA. I think as you as a group ought to, if that's, yeah, it might be regulatory once they have the lease though, right? I just don't know what the rules are. I don't know what the rules are, but if you had to pay, we would pay for VOLA. We would make the payment. No, it would be like for, we would pay the VOLA. Yeah, well, yeah, you wouldn't be charged anyone and put it that way. We would just, whatever we collected in the rent, we pay to the VOLA.
So we
Yeah.
wouldn't even see that association fee.
You shouldn't see I don't know how it's going to work, but if you do, you can tender it to us because that's part of the program.
I don't have a problem paying for my association fee if I get my lease in hand.
Okay, we can,
Yeah, I was talking to Kealoha, and he was mentioning, they've been collecting the $30 a month, and people have been paying it, and they use that to conduct programs. They use that they're looking to fix up the park. So we got to get them water, but they got funding that they want to fix up the park. It's obviously you don't want your kids playing in the street. So if we can facilitate that improvement, just like that little lot down below that you want to do, community garden stuff. So we're making that available. But, we want to have a community that is, safe, especially for our kids. So, but there are certain challenges, as you know, this side of the island, water is very scarce. We are doing 580 new, including some others in Kalamanui, across from the airport, Hawaii High. So we're trying to work with the water department, see if we can not only get water for these new homesteads, but address some of the needs of the existing homesteads. So we're looking at that, and we're going to try to address that. But getting back to your question regarding the maintenance fees, we'll talk about it. But I'm assuming that what he's saying is we do need to comply with the requirements regarding the funding, the certification, all of that, which I had mentioned. But regarding the access to the programs that the VOLA conducts in the homesteading community at the resource center, what Keone said, you guys are welcome to participate. If you have a baby luau, you want to use a facility that they don't have any objections, you guys having access. You got to pay the fee, clean up or whatever. But he was very supportive of you guys being part of the community and being treated, at the same level, the same respect, benefit. Any other question? Yes, sir.
You're giving us the lease. So when does the $99, when do you need that?
I don't want to retroactively charge you. We'll start at the date of the commencement, because you actually have the right to add another 100 years. You know about that.
Right,
So
right.
99. So on these new project leases, well, we're having guys who spit an entire $99 to get done with it. It makes a lot of sense.
So when does the lease take effect?
Yeah, we're gonna have to check with the legal. We're having an issue with the Waimea homesteaders, trying to figure out when to start date. But I would say that we should make it start the date of the issue.
So we're getting the lease tonight, but,
Well, not tonight. We gotta.
oh, so
We
so
gotta
we gotta wait
process.
until the issuance is all clear.
Yeah.
up, okay.
Well, I already have the attorney that have
Oh, okay.
written up the lease. Let me also add, though, you get the homestead lease, but now that homestead lease is subject to this financing program. So if you screw up on the financing, then you may lose both. So, pay your $99 or whatever, and then pay the rent and, with the offset on the utility allowance and all that. And then allow the certification and, all that regular stuff that as a homeowner you should be subject to and comply with. Sure. Toby. Oh, I can repeat the question. What was your question? Oh, you got one of those project leases. Well,
I'm thinking about giving, transferring the lease to someone. If I do that, can I still live in this house that I'm living at the rental?
well, yeah, that would be a problem because you're exercising your right to a lease based on your date of application, and this one you already have. And if we issue a lease on this, for you to live in this one, but give your project lease to somebody else, it's like double dipping. I don't think that would be fair to the guys on the wait list.
So if I transfer to someone,
Well, you won't be able to transfer it if you have this lease. And we'll give you.
I won't be able to transfer.
But once you get the lease, you can transfer it for this one.
I mean, this one,
You're free to transfer it to quarter Hawaiian, your kid.
yeah. Also, the one I have, I cannot transfer.
No, you shouldn't have got that one. The second one, because you already have this one, assuming I give you a lease. Now,
Right.
if you want to give it up, which I think it would be foolish because you got all this equity. How long have you been living in the house?
Since it started,
Which is how
since the
long?
project, almost 5 years.
5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got all that kind of equity built up, and you don't want to give that up.
So I cannot, so it would be worth it for me to give out the other lease to somebody.
Well, you're not really giving it up because once you get the lease, you've gotten your lease. You'd be taken off the wait list. The one that you got subsequently, that is really not appropriate that you got that because you have and you're gonna get a homestead lease.
But at that time, you guys weren't giving, this information wasn't given out, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so, I guess for myself, when I have to stumble. Like some of us got into the program because like for myself, I knew outright I couldn't get a mortgage for just purchase and place, right? But the understanding getting into this program was that I would still be able to get other offers. If at some point my finances changed and then I could purchase. But if you give us, if we become the lessees, we do not get any of those other offers. Is that my understanding? Is that?
You gotta make a choice whether you want to stay with this and we'll ask you, you want the lease, we'll give you the lease. But if you were to say, I don't want it, or I don't know why you would want to do that. If anything, I would take it and give it to your kids or somebody else. But don't give up all that equity that it's generated by participating in this program.
Yeah, I guess my thought is if I stay in this program and I pay 15 years at $1,500 a month,
Well, you got
I-
about another 10 years left on yours?
I think the 4 years probably is.
4 years.
4 years is how long we've been in the
You've been
program,
in.
so like
So
11
you got
more
another 11 years.
Yeah,
Right.
I would have paid $270,000 at 15 years. And then I'm gonna purchase the house, $3,000. I paid $570,000
Mhm.
for the house that I lived in. Whereas if I can get an offer now, because my finances have already changed in the current state that the program is offered, I can put up I don't know, another house, a model home for $300,000 in right now, right? Versus 15 years or 11 years from now, I'm going to be paying $570,000.
Well,
Right,
what
I
is
mean,
the cost of your land though? You're talking about the vertical construction? You're not gonna get a house for $300,000 with the land, the fee, as well as, or 199-year lease, which you also have to pay. Typically, if you went out in the market and bought, there's no way you're gonna buy a house for 300 in fee.
No, I guess okay, so where we currently are, across from us,
Mhm.
they can just get lease. They're just gonna get offers. It's not gonna be a rent to own program, right? So
Right,
if they just
turnkey.
take the lease as is, 2 years from now, right? They have a choice of just putting up their own house or doing Habitat for Humanity, or there's other options, right? That they're gonna have at that point.
But they have the lease
Yeah, once they have the lease,
and all the
right?
infrastructure as well as, the improvement of the lot will have been accomplished by the department. So they're getting, it's more than a lease. They're getting an opportunity with this parcel that they've chosen and selected to pay for the vertical construction in a different way with sweat equity or, build it themselves, but it would be still, have to take out a mortgage and get their building plans, which a lot of people don't have that capacity to do that. That's why we do the turnkey and these other approaches.
So what is that cost looking like now? What does that cost to do all
the
of that right now?
cost-
Like what are we looking at?
The
Because
cost for the infrastructure alone is roughly about $290,000 to $300,000 per lot. That's what the department absorbs and pays for.
okay, so if we can qualify for that in 2 years, right? Because some of those are being offered already, right? There's some of those offers on the table, right? So if I can pay $300,000 and get a mortgage for $300,000 in 2 years,
It's gonna be more than 300,000. Let me explain something
what is it gonna
also.
be?
These project leases that we have issued out. Now, just because you have a project lease doesn't mean you automatically got a specific lot. What now happens after you, in the case of Laʻi ʻŌpua, we've given out close to 500. That individual with the project lease, we now do an assessment, Hawaii community assets, or we go in and we sit down, we talk with that individual, and we try to figure out, okay, how much income do you have? Okay, if they're elderly, retired, social security, whatever, we might say, you know what, you might want to do the LIHTC with option to purchase, because there's no way you're going to qualify for this large mortgage. But this is a way that you can not only get a, in and live in a house that's subject to the 15-year program, but that's how they can get one rather than trying to go across the street and whatever, do it. Or, in doing the assessment, we'll categorize the people with these project leases, and we'll figure out which category they fit in. If they're low income, below 60% AMI, we put them in this category, participate in a program like this. If they have good income and they can afford to get a mortgage, then we'll turn them over to Hawaii Community Lending, which will show them maybe the 6-7 loan products. And we try to figure out which one they fit into and which is best for them based on their resources and qualifications. So, and then on the owner builder, you gotta, also get a mortgage. We will require that, you have a contract, and we'll help on all of this. We'll give you choices. We'll also give you loan products that you can use to pay for this home. Or if you are wanting to participate in the habitat, you will have to participate in the workshop, which will explain all the requirements. You gotta, build so much and put in so much sweat equity on somebody else's lot. Then once you do that, you become qualified. Then the interest rate is 0. We're using our housing funds to do that. And then, you're gonna have to help build that house. You gotta put in the sweat equity. But all of these individuals that have come off and have this project leases, we're gonna put them into different categories, but it's on them too. Now, if they're in the category for the turnkey houses, they're gonna have to go get a loan. Now, if they just sit on their okole and don't do nothing, don't submit their, tax returns and all that, and they don't qualify for anything, even though they got a project lease, that's not on us. That's on them, because they didn't make the effort to get the qualified and be qualified for a mortgage. So if they'll get bypassed, but that's because of their lack of initiative in doing the things that are required to be done. So it's a kind of a two-way street. You gotta go through this workshop. Now, if you're gonna be on the LIHTC program, that's what we're having tomorrow, a workshop. If you don't go and participate in the workshop, I'll tell you right now, you will not be able to participate in the program, because we don't want you to say, well, you didn't tell me about this. We want you to make an informed decision, a voluntary decision to participate in this program. So that's why you got to come to the workshop if you've been identified as a lower income individuals that qualify for this program. And if you don't, then you don't get out.
So I guess going into this program, we thought of it as one thing, right? Not that we would be given our lease. So I'm not saying that it's a good or bad thing, but I'm saying, do we have the time to not be a part of this program and then go with some of those options that you just presented?
Yeah, you have time. I mean, but you got to qualify. Now, if you're over income, you can't participate in this program. There's a restriction. But you can qualify for a mortgage. And we got like 6, 7, 8 different loan products that we'll figure out what, loan product fits your situation. And then you submit the documents and we'll sign you up, and then the contractor will start to build. You got your, your loan in place. Then what happens is all those individuals that have qualified for their loans, they'll have an opportunity at another event where the developer will show on a map all these 50 lots over here in this Laʻi ʻŌpua development are the turnkey units. So who's first? Who's first up? Okay, you get to choose first because you are first on the wait list coming off. And then you've pre-qualified and you got your loan. And then we'll go down, the 50 different recipients that have qualified for the loan, that have participated in the project lease awards, who get to choose. And, you know, we'll also show you the timeline when the houses will be finished. You start to move in you know, a certain sequence. You're on the back end, you move in later. That earlier one, you get the move in early.
Yeah, so I'll talk for myself and other people that are around me in this current program. There's 2 offer letters that we just recently received, right? And one is for phase 3, that's gonna be above us. And then one is for lots of, I guess, above the watershed, right? So there's some of us who are still getting offer letters because we are renters, right? So we have these other options. And I guess for me, like, I would like to explore that before you give me my lease as a leasee, because maybe I would want out of this rent to own program and be a part of one of the other programs that we've been getting continuous offers for, because we were told when we initially went into this program, we were only renters and we would get continuous offers. Because like, we might go in at 60%, but then throughout the years, we might be making 80%. And so now we can qualify for a mortgage and we can get out of the program and go to another program. So I
Yeah.
guess I'm just
Yeah.
making sure that we can have those options before we get that lease from you, because some of us might
Yeah.
not want to be a part of the rent to own program and might just want to get the mortgage, build our house, which may or may not be a cheaper cost down the road when I come to 15 years.
You know what, actually, you do raise a good point, because technically you aren't a lessee. You're still considered a renter. Now, if you were to say, okay, I want to give that up, you've been in it for 4 years, but I want to give it up while I'm still a renter and I reject the lease. I guess legally you could do that, but I would caution you to really take a look at what that means. Now, if you're now 90% AMI, you can't participate in this program. So you give up that option. So at that 90%, can you qualify for a mortgage that will be able to, a turnkey unit that will cost maybe $700,000? So my suggestion is you really have to do the analysis, because you may be giving up, but losing everything, in a sense that when you give it up, you no longer qualify for this program. You don't have enough money to qualify for a mortgage to buy one of the newer units. But I guess technically you could do that. Then what we would do is to find a replacement for your house. But there's a big risk and gamble, because you've built up a certain amount of equity. You're in the program. You're good to go. You have a house that your family in and benefiting from, and you only have another 11 years before. Well, we're going to give you a homestead lease. That's the other thing up front. So you don't have to wait for another 11 years before you get your homestead. That's the big difference, that, especially if your heirs are less than 50%, that's also a risk. If by delaying and giving it up, you should pass away and your kids are, and you don't have well, actually, I take that back. You do have a lease that you took a project lease. No. You don't have a project lease?
No.
Okay, so that also that thing, because you hadn't participated in the project lease award, by giving the unit you have, you're risking a lot. I can sit and talk with you. We'll talk more about it. We have to go through your situation, figure out something that makes sense for you.
In an instance like hers, if she were to give up her current position as a renter, would that affect her place on the list?
No, I'd treat her as retaining their place on the list, because we haven't given you a lease technically under the old program. But if I give you a lease, and you say, and you accept it, and that's it, you're taken off the list. But that, again, is a choice. And like I say, it is a choice for you folks to go that step where we give you a lease for the property or the land underneath. Now, if you don't want to do it, which I think, really got to think about that. And anybody that is thinking about that, I'd like to personally sit down with you and go through the process with you to make sure you don't lose out on a homestead. I really, am concerned about that and how it might impact their heirs, as well as your ability to qualify maybe for this new program. But that's something choice. Now, if you don't have a project lease, those have already been awarded out. So even more so, you're at risk by giving yours up if you don't have a project lease now. And just, we do have more projects on our books that we're doing, but it's gonna take some years. And we've already committed to villages 1, 2, 5, and 4, then the Kauai High. Then we have the Palama Nui, that's it's about 40 single family. What else? Yeah, so anyway.
Okay, so after kind of hearing everyone's, say their part on their concerns of receiving a lease, I think there's a clarification or that we need as a lahui, that what's the time frame that we as applicants are given before we decide to accept that lease? Because we also want to follow the 15-year, term that we have with the property management. But for those who maybe is dwindling on, should I purchase my house now outside or should I stay in the program? Is there like a deadline? Because we don't want to be or feel rushed to make that decision for our family if we can select a lease outside of the program.
That technically you are not taken off the wait list. You're still on the wait list. So you do have that option. But like I said, a lot of the projects already we've awarded paper leases or project leases. Now, regarding a decision whether in your situation, assuming you're under the old program, should I take a lease and what is the timing? For me, the reason why I went into the legislature and changed the law was because people were dying that were under this program and getting nothing. So for me, there's an urgency that we give you these leases as soon as possible, because you never know what's going to happen next week or tomorrow. If you were to pass away and your heirs are only, 25%, or it doesn't actually matter because you don't have a lease, you don't have nothing. There's no equity under this program as it exists that is given to you on your death. You just lose out. That's why it's such an unfair situation that we have to go in and change the law. So that, to me, we should give it to you tomorrow, really. So, avoid the risk of you passing away during right now and get nothing. So I would say that I would suggest you guys push us to get these leases out as soon as possible, rather than say, well, I want more time to decide. I don't think so.
So there's a lot of us who, like myself, so my fiance was on the DHHL list and I would be considered his beneficiary, but unfortunately, I'm not 50% Hawaiian,
Yeah.
but I'm Hawaiian.
So,
So that
You got-
part was a little concerning for us, as a family with keikis. We didn't know, okay, if he passed away, I gotta move out. That was my fear. As a Hawaiian, I was scared.
that's
I wouldn't know where to go. There really wouldn't be a place for us to go. So for me, I'm stoked and I appreciate the, I guess, the coming together for all the parties that is in leadership for this program to kind of figure out the pieces to the puzzle
Yeah.
that we needed X amount of years ago. There's another question that I have, and it's in regards to the rent. So I know that increases every year. Who decides on that? You know, like what entity decides or, you know, tells the property management, okay, this is the rent amount that we're gonna be increasing.
Yeah, that's set by HUD. They
Okay, so,
publish an annual
okay,
rent by that, we use to, determine the rent. That usually goes up, but I know of instances where it's actually gone down. So
so
HUD.
it's something that
it's
fluctuates.
It's not him that sets it. It's
Yeah,
HUD.
okay. I think that's the clarity that some of
Right.
us needed. But going towards that question, continuing, when our rent increases and you mentioned there's a percentage that will be taken to be kind of put aside in a sense, when we make 15 years, when we purchase.
Well, you know what, one of the, other developments in Papua, the Holy Malima project, the, developer, what he did was I think 2 or 3 times the amount, he put into the reserve account. And then at the end of the 15 years period, he used that money to put in new appliances, paint the house, to redo the roof. And, it was, something that was planned. In fact, he, kind of reversed it where in year 15, how much would these improvements cost? And so he reversed it back, decided to put aside so much money in the reserve account in anticipation of doing these improvements. Now, I don't know how, Doug is doing it, but that particular developer did it that way. Now, by doing that, he's collecting more. And I think that, the, IRS allowed him to do it. I don't know if the rules have been changed or they can't do it, but they're kind of limited to how much I believe you got to set aside a certain amount of the reserve account for certain things. Now, if there's excess, we as the partner are going to require that to be used for capital improvements. It's not going to go into his pocket or our pocket. We're going to make sure that money goes into capital improvements, if there's any. Now, if we were to charge, more, money to put in the reserve account, then we use that to do improvements on the back end of the 15 year, which is what the other developer did. But again, we're not looking for reimbursement for the infrastructure, which prior administration was looking at. Fortunately, that developer fought hard for the beneficiary. Said, no, you shouldn't take that. Don't charge and make the loan that's being taken out to reimburse you for that. So I gotta, really appreciate Craig Watasi, the MDI, for fighting for the beneficiary. Similarly, Doug and myself feel the same way that all that equity that's generated from the tax credits, as well as the money we put and paid for in the infrastructure, that goes to you guys. So you pay for the net of whatever the outstanding debt, the remaining debt, along with the taxes, along with the transfer fee. That's and that's a ceiling that we as a developer in the conversion process, we use to pay off that. And that's why the purchase prices are kind of under that umbrella or ceiling. We're not going to charge.
I'm sorry. One thing I'll say is that, and I mentioned this earlier, is that when we structured this deal, we took we're paying off the debt in an accelerated fashion. So the first mortgage on your property normally has a balance at the end of the 15-year period that would have to be paid off by the purchaser. But what we did, because we said, I think the purchase price will go over what they can afford. What I'm going to do is I'm going to super fast pay that loan off. So when year 15 hits, that mortgage no longer exists. So on the property I just showed today, which was actually it's phase 3, they have like $1.1 million of debt on the property that will be extinguished by year 15. So it won't burden the buyer, which is you. So indirectly, your rents do go to reduce your ultimate purchase price. That's how we do it. We did a little differently.
There's 6 questions that are on chat. So if you guys, first one is, what will be the range of prices for purchase after 15 years?
Right now, those are an estimate that I have. I used, there's a bunch of estimates we have to do because it is year 15. I have it on the slides, kind of the estimate. And what I'll do is I'm going to have that sent to everybody.
It's on the chat right now.
Yeah, this slide though, I'll send
The
the
slide-
slide. The slides actually show
Yeah.
the
so
range.
It's on the chat and the chat is going to be available. We can make it
The
available
slide will
to
be
you.
on the chat. Okay.
Yes.
So that'll give you the range. It's right in there. And it
Sec-
depends on your income.
Second question is, will the rent we've paid so far go towards the purchasing price?
I mentioned that just earlier. We're actually taking out a first mortgage that normally would remain at the end of 15 years. You'd have a big balance to pay off. We're using your rents to retire that so that by the end of the 15 years, it will go down. It will. It won't exist.
The next question is, and I believe you might have answered this already, what amount on an annual basis will go to the final purchase price?
Is that the same
Yeah.
question?
Number
Let's see,
3,
what amount on an annual basis will go to the final purchase price? Is that asking the same rent question?
I believe so.
Okay. The same answer. What, in this case, for the 32 units, there's $1.1 million collectively going to be retired.
Number 4, it
Uh-huh.
appears that the electrical system is under design and some circuits will trip on a regular basis on microwaves and toasters. Who is responsible for upgrading the circuits?
Cali is responsible. No, I'm just thought I'd throw that out there because I just wanted to take the pressure off me. The purchase price. I mean, sorry, we're back to the purchase price. Okay, let me get clarity here. There's something wrong with there's a couple of things that happen. Number one is what the construction guy did is he thought he was really being smart, and what he was going to do is he skipped every other plug. So like, plug 1 is on the circuit and plug 3 is on the same circuit. So people think that they're dividing up they're not on the same circuit. We'll explain that to you guys, but I also think there's something in the system that we'll have to look at. So Amy, I want you to get with Todd and say, but there's 2 things going on. If you think you're being smart because you put the fryer in plug 1 and then you put a different thing in plug 2, those are on the same circuit. It's not like 1, 2, on the same circuit. I don't know why he did it that way. He thought he was being pretty smart, but I think we got to educate you on that part. It was odd to me, and then we'll have Todd look at the circuitry.
I have 3 other questions that
Mhm.
I didn't text to you yet.
Okay.
It just came in. So the question is, how much will the mortgage be for the turnkey homes? I believe you answered this already.
Yes, I
Seems
did.
like it will be less than our 15-year program amounts.
You mean what you're paying for rent today? I think the actual purchase of the home mirrors, like your monthly outlay almost kind of mirrors what your rent is. You see what I'm saying? So the mortgage payment, I think HUD was being pretty tricky, and they tried to make sure, because your rents are affordable, supposedly, I mean, some of you, probably nothing's affordable right these days, but the rents are your affordable rents are supposed to match your mortgage payment. So it's kind of equal, if that's what the question is. I think.
So another question, I believe Chair had answered this. So the folks that are living in the area that you're building up in Village 4, if they have leases, are we going to give them leases? If we are going to give them, can the person give her rental to her successor, then apply for a turnkey?
Callie, I'm not sure. The one thing I have to clarify myself is the one question I had, that maybe later is that, you know, there is a affordable requirement though for the successor, right? So the one thing we have to be kind of careful is your successor has to qualify under the rental program too. I just want to throw that out there, that we have this overlay that we have to be attentive
And I
to.
believe what they're asking is, can they go back to the wait list? They can, but they're gonna go to the bottom of the wait list. And actually, you're gonna go to another wait list. We're gonna go to another one because you already have a lease. Oh, no, I'm saying if they do get a lease, so the question was, if you get a lease, can they pass it to the successor and then go back on the wait list?
Yep.
Yeah, so they go to the bottom, but it's another bottom because it's one that already had a lease. So you gotta allow the applicants to actually have a first chance. Last question on the chat. In the RWOP or in the right with option to purchase, the original renter passes. Can a successor be awarded the RWOP? Does the successor need to meet the original income limit? You just
I
answered that
just answered that.
as the original renter.
Right, they got to, as a, yeah, as original renter, that is correct. That is correct. You're gonna have to meet the income requirements. But the person over there you have a hand up? Yeah, first of all, your last thing was excellent. I want to tell you that. Very complicated. I would also like to take a shot at it separately from this meeting. It was a good question. I guess we're thinking it from two ways, right? People that want to maybe not accept the lease because they got an option. So what other question did you? Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, now this is getting away from what we're
Okay.
discussing. But has it ever occurred to cut down from 15 to 10 on the lease, on the renting? With rent with option?
Yeah, oddly enough, it was 10 and they made it 15. They actually extended it out several years ago, and that's not under these guys. It's nothing to do with these guys.
Okay.
Yeah, the tax credits, yeah, there's that 15-year compliance period. But we actually, on Hawaii and Pa'a, we have the Waipoli project. We're using a different funding approach, and we're going with a 10-year period. That one is a rent to own, not a rent with option to purchase. So equity is actually being generated, and in that one also, we're giving a homestead lease upfront. So we're trying to, and again, you got to recognize the reason why we have these compliance spirits and stuff. It's to not only get this funding that helps reduce and creates equity for the beneficiaries, which is really, really important, but it's a means by getting home ownership for individuals that can't qualify for a mortgage. So this 10 or 15 in the case of you folks, I mean, it's a challenge, but it is a way to home ownership that you guys wouldn't have. So we got to get creative, innovative, and, you know, thankfully guys like this, you know, have helped the department. And he's continuing to do that. You know, this guy and I go way back, the first project in Nanakuli, the Halimakano Nanakuli, the 48 rental units. And that's all rental. There's no home ownership on that one. And so we, you know, we got that one up, and he was the guy that taught me how to use tax credits and home funds and CDBG and all kind of the good funding sources to address the people on the wait list. So it really is, you know, in development, the key is financing. So you guys have a financing approach. There's certain restrictions you got to live with. The ones tomorrow, they're gonna have to understand those restrictions. And if they don't want to participate, that's their choice. But it is going to be very tough for them to, you know, get a home ownership or situation.
I want to point out one more thing, and maybe it's more obvious than I think it is, but normally when you go out and you qualify for a home, right? What is your loan to value, right? That's what everybody looks at. So a traditional loan to value is 80-20, right? That's kind of the normal one. And you can go down below, that could be 90-10. But in a program like this, what we just pointed out here is when you're taking a home, possession of a home, and you have to pay, say, $300,000 for that home, your loan to value is like 30%. 30%. So what Cali's trying to I think, drive home. And I think is that you have you have in $1 million home, you have $700,000 worth of equity in that home. And this, why it becomes important is, and I understand some of the other questions in the room, but I'm saying, later on for the young group where they have kids that need to go to school, or where you might want to go from the 30%. And somebody was saying, well, what happens if I make more money and I can take an opportunity of another home? What I'm saying is, in your case where you're making more money, you can actually borrow more against the home that you have. If you're already at 80-20, you have no more to borrow. You have no more to tap into, right? So if you have more income, you can, help send your kids. Well, for those of you who are sending your kids to school, was a painful, it's a rather painful process. I know you all know that. But the point I'm trying to make is that's what I'm saying. When you step into that home and you borrow the money to buy the home, you're literally at a 30% loan to value. And that's very, very, very low, very unusual.
Any more questions? Yes.
My question is, can we purchase the home that we're in right now? Can we purchase the rental home? Yeah, okay.
I'm sorry. On the chart, one of the charts I gave you, I indicated where you would be if you bought the property today, just so it would give you an idea, because it's hard to say, well, in 50, that price looks really high, but it really isn't that high because you're 15 out, or in your case, you said, I think 11. But the point is, the program, the investor that puts the money in on the equity to get paid, for him to get paid back, the government pays him back. You guys don't pay him back. It's a government program. So the government, essentially gives tax breaks and stuff like that, but he has to hold it for 15 years so that can be retired at the end of the 15-year period.
Got it.
That's, yeah.
Thank you.
I'll repeat your question. What's the question? How long are we going to be able to provide this kind of program on our other projects? Well, this past session, the legislature actually awarded about 240 million in rental housing revolving funds, along with DER. There is a certain ceiling on the 9% tax credits, so that's a very competitive process. Then there's also a ceiling on the 4% bonds that are tied in with the tax credits. So one of the nice things about our program is that we get priority because we have a Native Hawaiian program. It's part of the state's fiduciary responsibility to help Hawaiians get homes. The Housing Finance and Development Corps has structured the point system, which they use to figure out who gets the awards, to our advantage. Because it's a DHHL project, more so we're putting in the land, we're providing subsidies to which add to the points. So we've been pretty successful in accessing these funds, and we will continue to do that. All 29 projects, especially the big ones, we do these types of projects. Because again, the people on the project lease that get the project leases, not all of them can afford, these large mortgages, or they don't want to be building and sweat equity their house. So that's why this project or this approach is really ideal. And that's why we adopted it. We're doing it in Hawaii. We're doing it for our beneficiaries. And like Doug was saying, they don't do it that much on the mainland. But we try to be innovative. We're building a Bolodrome 23-story high-rise condo that's 278 units. Right now, it's a rental project. We use tax credits, bonds, and all kind of other stuff. But we're going to change that one also, like how we're changing your guys' situation. We're giving you the lease for the land. We're going to do the same thing for that one. So it's not going to be just a rental where you rent, you pass away, you got nothing to give your kids or anything. Now we're going to do that. We're doing that for the 82 townhouses which is a renovation project in Kapa'a. Beautiful townhouses right on the beach, close to the beach.
that's never been done in the program. So we're really trying to get innovative, but we also want to make tweaks or changes where we see it's not working. And in this case, where, this 15 years and you don't have a homestead, we want to give you a homestead. So that's why when you ask, well, should I wait? How long I got to wait? My thing is, I think we should, as quickly as we can, make the offer. And then hopefully all of you will take advantage of that, get that homestead lease for the land underneath. Because like I said, if you pass away, that's trouble for your family.
We'll focus here on my side of the equation. So we've determined too is that right now, this program, tax credits and what we do in private activity zones are actually viewed favorably at the federal level right now. Everything I'm reading is about it. And Callie mentioned something earlier, and it applies to everyone, is that housing is the fundamental problem solver. And I talk to HHFTC a lot about this, is that, when you talk about food insecurity, when you talk about health and wellness, when you talk about all these other issues that are on the list, in the context of housing, they can be resolved. We've done some on a property we have down in Lahaina, one of our properties. That one has an early childhood education on it as well. So we're looking into education, and it's cheaper. They've figured out, and I don't think everyone's a humanitarian, but they have figured out that the housing is a simple way to solve it. In fact, we're talking about beefing up our community centers for shelter, right? Because I can take, I have a property that has 200 people. Where do they go? If I can fortify so they're saying, oh, we'll find a place to put a shelter. And we were saying, well, but why not here? Let's just beef up this and make sure that our people have a place to go when they know they just have to walk. So there's the housing solves a myriad of problems. So I think they're going to think twice about it. Now, that's not to say there's some crazy going on, because there is some crazy going on, but I think we're going to do pretty well. I think so.
Any other questions? If not, I'm going to be hanging around here, Doug, myself, and we'll be happy to, sit down and talk to those individuals that feel a little bit more comfortable talking one-on-one. But I'd like to, again, thank all of you for coming out tonight. I'm glad I was able to share the changes we're making, as well as answer some of the questions you have regarding the program. And that's the whole thing. You need to be informed. And if you're not informed, I can see how people get upset. But also, hopefully, you'll have a certain amount of joy in the changes we're making, because we do want to protect our beneficiaries and make sure that it's not only a house for you, but it's for future generations and your children. So again, thank you for being here tonight. And like I said, we'll be around, and there's some coffee and stuff in the back. Help yourself. Aloha.
Hey little girl, won't you come with me? We'll climb the branches of a mango tree. Laugh and sing, happy as can be, really sweet. Hey little girl, let's take a walk in the sand. We'll stroll the beach, sing hand in hand, and build a castle, a wonderland between. I am your guy and you are my gal. Friend forever, buddies, pal. Inseparable, it's plain to see. We'll be together for eternity. A teenage beauty in a snow white gown. Let's hit the prom and we'll boogie down. Jump in my car and we'll paint the town. We'll swing. Hey, pretty baby, can you come out tonight? We'll share some dinner under candlelight. I'll steal a kiss if the mood is right. We'll swing. I am your guy and you are my gal. Friend forever, buddies, pal. Inseparable, it's plain to see. We'll be together for eternity. Hey, pretty lady, will you marry me? We've been together since the mango tree. We'll stay together for eternity and swing.